All right, man, welcome back. This is a week 4 of awareness, and this week we're going to be talking about the awareness of God. Before we jump in, I wanted to tell you about a YouTube video that I watched recently. It was called The Money Tree, and it was produced by Amy Rosenthal. And what they did is they took $100 in $1 bills, and they attached it to a tree in the middle of Chicago. And they set up their camera to see what kind of results they would get. And so as the people begin to walk by, amazingly, a lot of people never even noticed that there was money hanging from a tree. There was a lot of people walking by. There was a person on their cell phone talking. They were just, in their conversation and just walk right past the money tree. There was a person who had a suitcase and they were pulling the suitcase and they had somewhere to go, somewhere to be, and they just didn't notice the money tree. And what I find from this video is definitely an example of human nature. And that is that we are on autopilot a lot of times. And I don't know if I shared the story with you before, but I used to drive down a very steep mountain, about 30 miles. And if you're a newbie on this mountain, you're very conscious, you're very aware of every turn, and you're present, and this, that, and the other thing. But I've done it so many times that I could do it on autopilot. My brain knows every turn, right? And so there was one time where I remember being on top of the mountain, and then I became conscious and awoke when I was already down the mountain. And I would go, oh my goodness, like what just happened? From here to there, I was not even present. I was on autopilot. And so this is how we can pass by a money tree. This is how that day when she set up her camera and had all these people passing by this money tree is because of this subconscious stuck on autopilot. And so when it comes to the conversation about the awareness of God, this is extremely, extremely important because it's much like the money tree. Awareness of God is just as much like the money tree, and that is that the rarity. Have you ever seen a money tree? No, right? And so the rarity of it and having to pay attention to actually seize the moment. And so I find that with God also that there's no schedule where God shows up. There's no schedule where this and the other thing happens. It happens hit and misses throughout life and throughout the week or throughout the month. And it's only our awareness of it and being willing to be open to new ideas that this actual manifestation takes place. Now, I believe that there's many reasons why people didn't see the money tree that day. And I think the first and the biggest reason is, of course, that money doesn't grow on trees, right? Our brain doesn't have a frame of reference of bills hanging from a tree. And so it's our beliefs that keep us, inside of a frame. And that is because we believe that money doesn't grow on trees and we never see money on trees, we could just pass by it with not even connecting to the reality of what is taking place. And so the same is true with the awareness of God, that He is present, He is ever present, and He's always speaking. Those two things we know about God for sure, ever present and always speaking. But it takes us stepping out and becoming aware of what is going on, coming out of autopilot, if you will, and to begin to pay attention to what is going on around us. God speaks all the time. And I'll give you just a couple examples. You probably maybe heard me say these before, man, but I live in North Idaho and it snows a lot. And there's a lot of time driving in the snow where it's pretty much a free-for-all in the snow because there is no lines. The lines are gone. And immediately the Spirit of God begins to speak. That's what it's like when there's no boundaries. And that is a free-for-all, and people don't have the structure to maintain course. And so just from that simple thing of driving in the snow with no lines comes the communication of God. But I have to be paying attention. I have to be, as I'm driving, go, you know what? There's no lines in this road. This is really just chaos everywhere. People are parking wherever they want because there's no lines and all this different stuff. And I have to be able to equate it to a spiritual truth. And I have to pay attention enough to say God is speaking. And then I have to take it even a step further in my life and say, where in my life is this taking place? Is it in my family, faith, fitness, and finance, where this reality is taking place, where there's skewed boundary lines and there's chaos happening? And see, just from that simple communication of awareness, of paying attention of what was going on, produced a truth and a reality inside of my life that came from God in a way of communication. So it happened to my wife about a week and a half ago. She was, I think she had a dream, or she was looking at something and she couldn't get focused because she was so focused on the outside stuff, right? And I'm like, boom, God just spoke. Now there's analogies and there's stories and there's a way God speaks, and we have to pay attention. So that was, we're losing focus. And that we need to have our mind straight on what we want to achieve and get rid of the distractions. So the peripheral things that are going on, they're all fine and dandy and we look at them and all this different stuff, but they can become a distraction from the main thing. And so stop looking at all this other stuff and begin to look straight and get focused. And then I begin to ask myself, where in my life is this manifesting? Where in my life am I looking at all the peripheral? And so when I begin to laser focus, I begin to change and structure some things that are going on inside of my life because God spoke. Now, God does this all the time. He speaks through the Word. He speaks through brothers, in this program. But we have to be paying attention to receive it. So the awareness of God. John 17:3, one of my personal favorite scriptures, says this. And this is eternal life, that you might know you, the only true God, and Jesus Christ, whom you have sent. So we got a lot of people on the quest for eternal life, right? And so it spells out in the book of John, this is eternal life, that they might know you. And it's funny as you dive into this word know. It's not just surface level like we have in English. This word know in the Greek and even in the Hebrew had significant, powerful meaning that we're going to dive into right now, so we can thoroughly grasp what the awareness of God looks like. So the first is to acknowledge. And that means I'm going to take notice of, and I'm going to express gratitude to. So those are two steps. First, I have to notice God and notice His activity in my life. Notice that He's speaking. And then express gratitude for giving me that communication. And this comes through paying attention and taking notice of certain things that are going on inside of your life. If you get a nugget of truth from a brother inside of these groups, an expression of gratitude towards God is due. And it's due because God spoke to you through another human being. And God does that many times. He speaks through different scenarios that manifest in our life. He speaks through other people. He speaks through books. He speaks through movies. He speaks through whatever He wants to. In the Bible, He spoke through a donkey, right? And so it's important to understand that to take notice of, to acknowledge, and to give gratitude for the communication that is coming forward, because it's for our good. Now it's for our correction, and that is that there is an area of our life that is beginning to sway and to beginning to go off course. And if we are listening, the communication of God comes forth to put us back onto the track, right? Back on track, so we could go forward and make progress in our lives instead of going astray and going down a path that we really don't want to go down. The next word for this word know and to be aware is to be intimately acquainted with. So in the Bible, especially in the Hebrew, to know somebody was to be intimately acquainted with. And that is that when someone got married, he knew his wife. Like instead of saying that he went into his wife or they became intimate, the Hebrew just says that he knew or he know. Okay? And so that is to be intimately acquainted with. And so when it comes to the awareness of God, it is having our paying attention, have our minds open, being ready, having expressed gratitude. But it's a step forward that we become intimately acquainted with God himself. And think about this for a moment, that he has decided to take up residency inside your heart. And that we are the temple of the Holy Spirit and God dwells and lives inside of us. And just that amazing awareness and amazing reality alone should produce a powerful life. Think about this. The creator of the universes. I can't even grasp the vastness of his capabilities. But he has decided to take up residency inside of our hearts and inside of our lives. And it is the same power that resurrected Jesus from the dead. It is the same power that did all of those miracles that we read in the New Testament. And that same power has decided to live with us. And that should awaken in us a God consciousness. That God is everywhere, right? Most religions and spirituality of the world teaches that God is everywhere. But Christianity teaches something just a little bit different. And that not only is he everywhere, but he is in you. That he lives and dwells and remains on the inside of you. So at any time, at any moment, we want to step into a God consciousness. It's not like we have to summon him from a million miles away. It's not like that we have to have different objects or whatever to bring the awareness of his presence, because the reality of his presence is living and dwelling underneath the skin. And that is a powerful, powerful God reality. So, to know, perceive. This means to see with your eyes, but it also means to feel with your senses and to become aware of something. This is where awareness comes in again. To become aware of something through your senses. Now, I had an experience one time where I got silent before God, and I was just really connecting, and an aroma came into the room. Now, I've only had this happen once in my life. I don't think it probably ever happen again. I don't know. But it was the most beautiful thing that I ever smelt in my life. And there was just the thick, weighty something, manifesting in my life. And not that we seek supernatural experiences or something, but if we are in a place where we are thoroughly God conscious, where we are aware of what he's speaking, when we are in communication with him, we're intimately acquainted, there are things that can manifest to our senses that otherwise wouldn't, because we wouldn't be in a place or a position to really receive those things. So, to become aware through the senses. The next one is to recognize and to understand. And with this, we come into the reality of understanding his character, understanding his nature, being aware of what God wants is just a powerful reality in itself. Being aware of what is taking place inside of his paradigm, his belief system, his heart, and us aligning with that. That's just powerful, powerful stuff. So, the benefits of awareness. Daniel 11:32 says this: them that know their God shall be strong and do exploits. So this key word again is know. That is to perceive. That is to understand. That is to become aware of. It means to be intimately acquainted with. So them that are aware of God, those who acknowledge God, those who are intimately acquainted with God, shall be strong and do exploits. Now, many people are out there, especially, inside of this recovery group, men are seeking strength. They want the power to overcome their temptations. They want the power to overcome their obstacles. The bottom line is that they want to be strong. And I don't know about you, that I want to be strong too. I want to be filled with strength. I want to be filled with His might and His power and all of these things. And the reality of this equation, let me give you an equation. Them that know, those who take time to pay attention, those who are intimately acquainted, those who are connected, those who take the time, so those who know, shall be strong and do exploits. And so this strength and this power comes through our connection. We want the equation sometimes. We want the results. We want the end benefit of strength and power. Not understanding the cause that produces the effect. And the seed that is sown is the relationship and the connection with God, being fundamentally aware of His activity inside of our lives and beginning to understand what He is trying to communicate leads to the strength and the power. And we all want to be adventurous, right? We all want to do great things. We all want to, accomplish something meaningful inside of our lives. But once again, he said he put the word exploits as those adventures of those great and awesome things that men can do, attached once again to be intimately acquainted. And I'll say it one more time so we can thoroughly grasp it, that us as men that know, that are intimately acquainted with their God, shall be strong and do exploits. So once again, we're tapping into the benefits of awareness, being strong and doing exploits. Jesus says this. He answered some certain people that were close around Him, and He said, "You do err because you don't know the Scriptures or the power of God." And so he equated their error, their mistake, their lack of awareness, their straying away, everything that is going on in their life that is dysfunctional. And He says, you are missing the mark, you are error, you are falling short because you're not aware of the Scriptures and you're not aware of the power of God. You're not intimately acquainted with reading the Word and really getting who God is and what He's all about. And you're not intimately acquainted with His power and His ability operating in your life. And so the same flip side is also true. That instead of erring, that is walking the straight and narrow, walking a powerful, positive life, is connected to being aware of what the Scriptures say and being aware of the power of God. And I really like that Jesus put not only that you're aware of the Scriptures, because religion and religiosity can manifest those things also. But then He connects it to the power of God also. So not only are we talking about being intimately acquainted with the Scriptures, but being intimately acquainted with the power of God. And that is this power to live an awesome life. This power to rise above temptations and addictions. This power to begin to walk in fulfillment. And it is a power that is available to every single one of us if we choose to believe the reality of it and to begin to walk inside of it. So the Scriptures and the power of God. Jesus says this, you shall know. You shall know the truth, and the truth will make you free. Now, when it comes to recovery, when it comes to walking out this process, overcoming trauma, walking free from addictions and all of these things, that it's all about walking in the truth. And that is being willing to be honest with yourself, being willing to be honest with God, and sometimes being willing to be honest with another human being. So Jesus said that you shall know. You should be intimately acquainted with the truth. You shall become aware, perceive, and understand and grasp the truth. And that truth will make you free. We have a lot of men longing for freedom. and they put it out into a future day, and they say, someday I will be free. Not understanding that if you grab a hold of the truth for you today, and you side and you align yourself with the truth, that truth will begin the process of freeing you from the shackles that you are experiencing. So you should know the truth. Another part of awareness is to know his voice, and we already thoroughly talked about this at the beginning, but I wanted to throw this in here so you understand it. In John, he said he puts his own sheep, and he goes before them, and the sheep follow him because they know his voice. Now the sheep, of course, are us, and we follow the shepherd, and he's saying that the sheep follow because they know his voice. They perceive, they understand, they're aware of, and they're intimately acquainted with his voice. Man, there are many voices in the world today, all over social media, all over bombarding us with different paradigms and different belief systems. And if we would stop and we would be aware, we pay attention to what is going on, we could thoroughly hear what the Master's saying. And we could also drop some of these false belief systems and these false narratives that are taking place, because we know that they are not the voice of the Master. That is powerful, powerful stuff. 1 Corinthians 2:12. Now, when we receive not the spirit of the world, but we receive the Spirit which is of God, that we might know, there it is again, the things that are freely given to us of God. You see, I thoroughly believe that we don't walk in the benefits of our privileges is simply because we're not aware of them. And we're not walking in that awareness, right? It's much like the man who, I'll tell you this story, a man who found a box. And he used that box to stand on, to beg for money. He used that box to sit on when he was homeless, and he used that box to chop up his drugs and snort cocaine, and all this. He used this box for multiple different things. Until one day, the box rolled down the mountain and broke, and there was millions of dollars inside the box. Now, if he was aware of what was taking place, he would have lived differently, right? He would have probably not been homeless. He would not been begging. He would have not been this, that, and the other thing. But the fact is that he was unaware of what was inside the box. And we too don't understand this, that we are a housing and that we are a box, right? And there is this treasure inside this earthen vessel. And the excellency of the power is from God and not from us. And we read this and we don't thoroughly understand it. We're not fully aware of what's inside. It's much like a man who received an inheritance, millions and millions of dollars, right? But he is unaware that he actually possesses an inheritance, and he's unaware that he has these riches available to him. And so he goes on living the normal life of pauperhood and just scraping to get by, and not fully understanding that he has all the resources he needs at his disposal. He's just simply not aware. And so that's what I feel like is the condition of men. That these resources that Paul talks about, that we would know and thoroughly understand all of these things that are freely given to us by God, that they are there. But walking in the reality of things, understand that they actually exist, and being aware that they are for you right now, today. That is the challenge. Paul goes on to say, know you not that you are the temple of the living God, and the Spirit of God dwells inside of you. I won't touch on that one because we already went there. And lastly, Paul says, he prays that you would know the love of Christ, which passes all knowledge, that you might be filled with the fullness of God. You see, this filled with the fullness. and going to where there is overflow inside of your life is attached to knowing and experiencing the love of God inside of your life. So not only is know to be aware of and to perceive and to understand, but know is to experience the reality of these things. Experience the reality of the scriptures speaking to you. Experience the reality of the power of God operated in your life. And that is when you're weak and when you're falling short, that you reach out and tap into the resources that are available to you. That you would experience His voice through multiple different channels and multiple different ways, but that we're paying attention, and that we would experience the reality of the love of Christ. Are we aware of the love of God? And I'm not talking about up here. I'm talking about a heart belief where we're thoroughly aware with the love that God has for us. And lastly, the awareness of the divine nature. Peter says this, that they're given to us these exceeding great and precious promises, that we might be partakers of the divine nature. And so this awareness is all about understanding that we are taking part of the divine nature. Now, in no way are we divine in any fashion. In no way are we gods or anything like that. But we have the privilege of being in the royal family, and that we are princes and we are sons of the King, and that we have this family and we have this privilege and we have this position and we have this power, and we are literally get to partake of this divine nature, of this new heart and this new spirit that has been placed on the inside of us. All right, let's get to the application here real quick. So let's talk about the application of all this. Being conscious, being aware of being aware of God. How does this pan out inside a practical application? And that's what we're going to talk to right now. So practical application is this. Psalm 46:10. Be still and know that I am God. Be still. So we as men, we're always caught up in achieving, right? I know I am. You're caught up in work. I know I am. And we're caught up in this struggle, and we know and understand that we have to exert a lot of effort to achieve the different things that we want in life. And what we fail to be conscious of and to understand is the aspect of slowing down. And that is to be silent and in the moment. You see, if you're anything like me, there's thoughts just flooding through your mind at all times. And there are times where I need to be still and to keep silent. A moment of silence to begin to pause all the activity that is circling around in my brain. So it's taking a moment and saying, you know what? I'm just going to try to think about nothing, and just for 30 seconds, just release, right? Think about nothing. The second part of this is a stillness. So we're going to stop our activity and we're going to be still. And during this time, we can ask God to communicate to us. We can listen to what is taking place inside of our body. If we're doing too much, if we need to take a rest, all of these things, just to really stop the normal grind and begin to pay attention to what is going on. Do you feel a lot of stress inside of your body? Have you rewarded yourself lately? This is really important, and I'm going to touch upon this here because, as achievers, if you're anything like me, you want to accomplish multiple different things inside of your family, faith, fitness, and finance, and you are an achiever. But the only way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time, but then to reward yourself at different intervals of the elephant eating. Because the reality is that we won't maintain the course without some sort of reward system taking place. And so it's important, almost, I would say weekly, that you, as you finish and wind up the week, that you come up with a positive, powerful way to begin to reward yourself. That way you're communicating to your mind that you approve of this behavior. And what will begin to happen is that the behavior that gets rewarded gets continued, right? This is a fundamental thing that takes place inside of humans. The behavior that gets rewarded gets continued. And that's why it's really important to not pay attention to negative behavior, not give it attention, because they see it as validation. I'm not going to go there. Okay, so be still. That is, you know what? Am I willing to stop what I'm doing? Am I willing to take a break? You know, am I willing to go on a walk and talk with God? Am I willing to go into the forest, into the wilderness, to escape phones, distractions, all of these different things? Am I willing to get alone so I can connect and receive communication? Am I willing to meditate on the things that he says to meditate on? Now, that is to have a truth and have something powerful in front of your mind as the power of God, the love of God, the communication of God, the voice of God, and just really let that sink in a meditative form or fashion. This is definitely prescribed inside of the Bible. You look up meditate and you will find many scriptures upon meditation, but it says to meditate on a certain thing, a certain object. So that's good. So are we willing to do those things? Are we willing to read the passages in the Bible that talk about the love of God, and to read them over and over again, let them sink in inside of our heart, inside of our spirit? Are we willing to read the scriptures that define the will of God and let them sink in and just soak in them? Are we willing to really ask God, you know, what is your will for my life? What is the purpose for my existence? What is it that you want me to do? And just really sink in and bask on that. Now, this might be a question that you ask yourself, questions you ask yourself weekly. It could be daily, but we have to be willing to stop, pause, relax, calm down, be still, be silent, and know that he is God.